I bought this Ruark for my dad because he's in the market for such a player, and doing some due diligence I realised that this sounds better than a competing product. This Ruark also fits my dad's decor a bit better, so I thought at the same time I might as well review it. The R410 has two 100mm mid-bass units and two 20mm silk dome tweeters and a high power Class D 120 watt amplifier. As you might think, you can use Wi-Fi or Ethernet to connect to the internet. That's probably quite conventional for all-in-one streaming players like this and most hi-fi nowadays. If your router's struggling, Dad, to get a signal all the way down to this unit downstairs, then you can use Powerline, and that's what I'd recommend. I think nowadays that you can plug in Powerline adapters and you don't have to install any software, so they're plug and play and easy to use. Obviously you get the full bandwidth if you're going to use the Ethernet and more likely to have a stable connection. Obviously it would be remiss to review this product without talking about build quality, and the build quality of this thing is absolutely stupendously good. I love the looks of it. It's very Conran looking. It looks like something that's just come out of a Conran store. I don't normally like wood looks in hi-fi componentry. Obviously speakers are different because most speakers are wood, but in actual amplifiers and all-in-one units. But this thing seems to have an appeal to it that I can get over because it has retro appeal, and I get it. The audio quality out of the box is uncannily wide and dispersive and far from constrained to the physical size of the box itself. So surprised was I on audio quality and on this score that I was expecting to turn my nose up and say, such a one boxer can't stage as well as normal speakers. I can just hear someone typing on their keyboard at the moment thinking the same thing. I can hear it. That's definitely not the case, and whilst I haven't tried a separate system of amp and speakers around £1,300, the same price as this system, it would be hard to envisage that separate system imaging well, or appreciably better rather, than this Ruark R410. Also, bass is on point, the sound is composed in that way, and maybe this is because the case is very inertly non-resonant. You can tweak the bass if you play, say, a classical track and then you move to a rock track. I found myself doing that sometimes because this unit has tone controls. And by the way, you can use tone controls for each relevant source via the source menu. So for all the streaming inputs, that means that you can tailor different tone to the source that you're going to use. On the sources not associated to a streaming service but a physical connection of this unit, the R410 has a HDMI eARC/ARC connection, so you can send the audio from your TV to the R410 and play back audio through it. Also a moving magnet phono stage, which is for connecting up a turntable. There are two left and right phono inputs for that. Obviously you need to have a phono amplifier to deal with the small signal of a turntable, and in this particular unit it's all built in. The USB-C input at the back is of a type to accept or receive USB music files off a USB storage drive, so one like this, Dad, that I've got here. This is the one that I'm using to record these camera clips through my laptop. But also you can use the input to accept Ruark's RCD1000 CD drive. So in this sense, this is an input to accept music on a USB drive and also the digital signal that comes from Ruark's own CD drive. You could put all your CD music onto such a USB drive and then just have it hanging around the back so that if you wanted to play that music at any time, you can. There is an optical input from, say, a CD player's similar optical output. This is a digital signal. Also, you've got a line input, which is a left and right RCA phono arrangement. You'll use that if your CD player or other analog source has analog outputs. I think your Technics does. It doesn't have a digital output, so that's how you'll connect up your CD player if you want to. And you'll also notice that there is a subwoofer output, although I don't think you'll be using that, Dad. The reason being that you want less boxes, I know, not more boxes, and I think that would be a reason why a lot of people would buy this unit. But also because the bass is lovely already. It comes out of these two bass reflex ports on the underside, so you have to have the R410 on a flat surface. And the other thing to discuss regards to tone controls is Ruark's Stereo Plus setting. This elicits that lovely wide soundstage that I was talking about. My advice is to always leave it on. It's so tremendous that such a great sounding product is made by a British company. Southend-on-Sea is how an Essex boy would say it. And by the way, I'm an Essex boy, so I can get away with saying that. Colchester is where I'm from. And this is an area northeast of London, for my American viewers, that was an overspill from London. All the people came from London in the 1960s, and that's why you get those thick Cockney style accents. But that you can get such good quality from what I guess we'd call a lifestyle hi-fi product is also tremendous. But don't be thinking that its quality is diminished being a one boxer, as it ain't. That's another Essexism. I'll put the translation at the bottom of the screen. Hi-fi is about compromises, and the compromise for my dad is that he wants an all-in-one one boxer that looks good, that fits into his living space, and that he can live with and isn't intolerant to, but also as a one boxer sounds best possible for the money, as opposed to spending loads more on hi-fi separates than this £1,300 of this unit that he wouldn't have a problem with, except for the fact that he doesn't want hi-fi components and separates dominating his living space, which I can understand and is fair enough. As far as streaming goes, the R410 has Spotify Connect and Tidal Connect. And look at it like this, Dad. This is essentially, depending upon which of these services you subscribe to, it's essentially a way of using your iPad and those relevant streaming apps to tell the Ruark to pull music streams to it for playback. It's just a way of using your iPad to send music to the Ruark, although it's not actually going from the iPad to the Ruark. It's the stream is being pulled from those services and the iPad is just acting like a remote control. I personally would have liked an app with this unit because you don't get one out of the box, so to speak. The reason being that when you're scrolling on radio stations, you can be doing so incessantly with the scroll wheel, which I think would be a touch easier by swiping on a tablet or phone, or smartphone rather. But this is probably less of a problem because you can use the preset functionality of the R410, which I'll come on to. And also there's nothing to stop you going on an iPad, dialing up that, say, the TuneIn app or compatible radio station app, internet radio, and then just using AirPlay, again, which I'll come on to send music to the Ruark. So I'm not marking it down on the basis that it doesn't have an app personally, although I think some people might want that as a feature of this unit. You get this remote control in the box with a roto dial scroll wheel, which mirrors the same controls on the top of the box. And the remote control has a USB-C socket for charging. The USB-C connection on the back of the R410 is both an input but also an output for supplying power, so you can utilise that. Leave it hanging around the back of the unit in case for when you need to charge it. But I like the way that the remote control is similar to the box top controls, because I think that's going to make it easy for some people to use, and probably particularly for you, Dad, you'll actually like that as well. Its buttons are actually easy to use. The roto dials of both controls have some resistance to them, which I think is intended, and it may conceivably ease up with time and the use of the unit, but I think this adds to the feel of solidity and build quality. Other ways of streaming is via what's called AirPlay or Chromecast. AirPlay is essentially an Apple streaming protocol whereby you can send music to your Ruark from any Apple device like your iPad, Dad, where you can play audio through an app on it that ordinarily comes out of its own speakers on the iPad speakers. Essentially, AirPlay works up to CD quality. For all intents and purposes, it works the same way as Spotify Connect or Tidal Connect in the sense of using your iPad to control music to the Ruark. It's similar for Chromecast, also known as Google Cast, although Chromecast is a higher resolution protocol than AirPlay, so it'll provide high-res music files to your Ruark. I can't think of many occasions where you might use that if you're going to be using Tidal Connect, because you'll just Tidal Connect music to your Ruark. If you're going to be using a different streaming service to Spotify or Tidal, utilising Spotify Connect or Tidal Connect, you could download a music streaming app to your iPad and then either AirPlay or Chromecast to your Ruark. So you can see the use there. Another thing to say about this R410 is that it auto switches. So if you're playing, say, classic FM internet radio and you want to go on your iPad and then send a track to it, you don't have to change the input. The unit will auto switch and sense the incoming stream that you've selected on your iPad. Then you've got other streaming options which you can access by the source button on either of the controllers. First is internet radio that we've talked about. You can use the preset functionality to store internet radio stations, which is I think what you're going to do, Dad. And you do this by finding the radio station, then going into the preset button, and on a spare slot or an existing one that you want to record over, press the top controller button and it will assign that radio station to the preset, so that in the future you can just dial up the presets to find your radio station. But you can also use one of 4 buttons on the controller where these little dots are for the first 4 presets to do the same job. So you've got one touch access to those presets. I don't think presets work via Tidal. I tried it and I couldn't get it to work. I think it does via Spotify Connect according to Ruark's own literature on their website. But I wouldn't make this a disadvantage, because obviously you can use the playlist functionality in whatever app you use, and most streaming service apps have access to that feature. It can also play DAB or FM radio via screwing in this telescopic aerial that you get included in the box, although I think that the likelihood of you using that is probably finite, because all your music radio needs are going to be catered for via the internet radio feature. It does also do music server playback, so any music drives that you have on computers or attached as drives to your router, although obviously you don't have those, Dad, or you don't have music on your computer, so I doubt you're going to use that feature. It's Bluetooth capable as well. Again, I doubt you're going to use that, because that's a compressed file format and your needs are catered for through the streaming functionality that we've talked about. There isn't a headphone socket with the R410 or any analog output so that you could add a headphone amplifier, although I'm not actually personally marking it down on that, because I suspect this unit is one that's going to get used quite conventionally as a music player in your living room or wherever you're going to put it. I don't think it's going to be a disadvantage for you, Dad, because you don't obviously listen to music via headphones too. Okay, so how do we sum this product up? all in all, I'd say it's a great product and it comes recommended. I'm surprised at how good this sounds for the money and how good it's built as well. Obviously, you check these types of all-in-one systems out when you're in department stores. We have John Lewis in the UK, where Ruark have a big presence, but you don't really know how good they're going to sound until you get them back home, and it's on that score that it has surprised me. So on its build quality, on its feature set, and on its sound quality, it does everything it says on the tin as far as what Ruark are saying. On that score, yeah, job done. Thanks very much for watching.